How did the Mongol Empire come to an end? How did it fall?
Despite the fact that Timur Oljetuhan had united the empire, at least symbolically, all of it, and they had the trade going on, the Mongols never adapted well to China, and they began having problems in different areas. So in some areas of the world, they became more like the local people. So in Central Asia, they became Muslim, and they got more absorbed into that world and broke away from the Mongol examples from before. Russia lingered on longer under Mongol domination, but it got weaker and weaker over time, and it was based around the Volga River, but they weakened to the point that they just became a tributary people minority within a Russian empire. But the Mongols had left kind of the framework for empire for Russia. That's something the Russians don't want to hear any more than they want to hear me criticize the end of the Song dynasty. But it is true that even yam is the word that was used for this postal system, and that's the ministries today in Russia. And there are many, many other things in Russia. It's just even malchik. Malchin is a herder. Mal is is an animal, and chin is a person who takes care of animals. It's all kinds of influences in Russia that some people want to deny, but there's always a great, powerful strand of research and scholarship in Russia that supports this understanding of the Mongols, and I depend on them tremendously. It's not just Gumilyov is one of the famous ones, but he was a little bit too romantic with his ideas and all. But I depend upon a lot of the research done by Russian scholars and by early German scholars in the 19th century under sponsorship of the Tsar. So I depend on that work. So you had a great influence there, but it was weakening. So bit by bit, 1368, the Mongols had become so weak within China that they were overthrown. But they weren't absorbed into China. The Mongols have been there since 1215 to 1368. They packed up, went back to Mongolia. It was just another seasonal migration.
Yeah.
It was just amazing. And they said, okay, we're still the Yuan dynasty. We're not giving you the seals. We're not acknowledging the Ming. And they never did throughout the whole of the Ming. In fact, they went down one time and captured the Ming emperor, took him back to Mongolia. And then they tried to ransom him. And the Chinese said, no, we're going to appoint another emperor. So the Mongols decided, okay, the worst thing we can do to the Chinese is give them back the old emperor. So you had two emperors, back. Okay, let them work it out, And the empire just weakened from internal reasons for the Mongols, but some external things from nature. And I think that was the Great Plague. Everything in history, everything that's good comes with something underneath it that's bad. And everything that's bad seems to have something underneath that's sometimes works out good in a way. But this great system that united, it's called the Yam or Orto, that it united everything. People could move back and forth quickly. Then it could also take the plague out of southern China into all parts of the world. And I do think that's what happened. And the plague destroyed the Mongol system. And if all of these people are ruled by Mongols because they're benefiting so much from this system, and now the system collapses.
Yeah.
You don't need the empire anymore.
Yeah.
So it just fell apart. After 1368, the empire just fell apart. And most of them stayed in Persia and Iran and Afghanistan. The Hazara people are still descended from the army there. And then in Russia, some of them stayed. But then finally, in the time of Catherine the Great, a lot of them were returned. Little bit, they had been there for hundreds of years. And then they returned to Mongolia in the 1700s. And so many Mongols came home. They were still Mongols, despite hundreds of years of exposure to other cultures. They came back to their tent and squatting around the fire and drinking fermented milk and eating dried curds.
It's interesting that the Mongolian spirit is so strong that it persists
Yes.
through centuries.
Yes.
And they just return right back on the horse,
Yep.
riding in the open steppe.
Yeah. Well, it was actually very difficult because they were a little bit lazy and they weren't so good with doing the task. And so it became difficult actually to support so many people coming home uh, and eating up all the animals. The Mongols in China had been used to just eating. They hadn't been producing much for 150 years.